All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of YouTube. This is Pastor Dow of the Straightway Truth Radio broadcast on Blog Talk Radio. Hey, and YouTube here today. This Laquan McDonald situation that took place in October of last year, 400 days later, it comes to public knowledge. There are also accusations that are surfacing that this was during a re-election year for Governor Ron Emanuel. I'm telling you, my personal sentiments about this whole entire thing. They're all gangsters, modern day gangsters. You know, I keep continually trying to tell you people the truth, but you don't want to hear it. The only time you want justice and the only time you want to hear anything that has to do with truth is when somebody has perpetuated some injustices against you. Other than that, it doesn't warrant any attention from you. But the reason why I come on in and tell you the truth is so that your mind can be prepared just in case any one of these situations come in your backyard. Because, hey, the stress of a situation like this is already off the chain. But, you know, they say it. They say it. Numerous of police officers said, and I'm gonna interject this real quick, fast, in a hurry. I do not trust the police. Period. I don't. And you do well to not trust them either. As a matter of fact, you need to understand that anytime you engage with a police officer, be it on duty or off duty, he is in the good old boy club. The good old boy club consists of, have you ever heard of the Fraternal Order of Police? Which we're going to hear one of the Fraternal Order of Police give what he calls his total opinion. It's just opinion, at least in his eyes, before all this evidence resurfaces. Because after all, Laquan McDonald was accused of lunging at the police officers. They called him a madman, stabbing tires and lunging at the police officers, and they had no choice whatsoever but to defend themselves. Self-defense. In other words, you're not going to have coffee with a man like that. Then, later on, as double-minded and two-spirited these people are, when they're caught with their hand in the cookie jar, he recants the statements and blames it on third party. A third party, you know, somebody way down the line. Heard it from a friend, heard it from a friend, heard it from a friend, heard it from a friend. This is what you're getting. See, every single time that there's a shooting in this country, you better believe that the good old boy club, the Fraternal Order of Police, now they're a little bit different than the Fraternal Order of Freemasons. You know, there's something awful strange about the Fraternal Order of the Freemasons in this country. Black people can't join the York Rite or the Scottish Rite. Not that I want to join any of them. Black people have their lodge. That's what they say. Their lodge. It's called the Prince Hall Lodge. All these are secret societies, and all these are an order that they protect each other from these unjust laws in this land because they don't apply to them. But anyway, they said that Laquan McDonald lunged at the officer. That's what he said. That's what he said. He says he's a crazed man. That's what he says. But however, video evidence that surfaces shows you the liars that every single one of them are. Every single one of them are. And there's no justice in this so-called system of justice. You can't get justice on stolen ground anyway. Right now, let's go to what Pat Cameron said. Let's go and see what he said. Let's go and see what he said. Listen to what he said.
Officers are responding to somebody with a knife in a crazed condition who stabs out tires on a vehicle and tires on a squad car. You obviously aren't going to sit down and have a cup of coffee with him. He is a very serious threat to the officers, and he leaves them no choice at that point but to defend themselves.
In other words, we are going to watch each other's back no matter what until we get caught. And then when we get caught, we're going to throw our buddy under the bus. That's exactly what's taking place. A dishonest system of disproportionate, what they call justice. We're faced with, in this country, police brutality on an unprecedented scale. We're faced with excessive use of deadly force in this country on an unprecedented scale. Do you people realize that this is nothing but old-fashioned gangster, cold-blooded murder? Yeah. Now, listen, I am not giving anybody a pass that has committed a crime against humanity. Nothing whatsoever at all. But over and over and over and over again, what do we continue to keep seeing? We keep seeing an unjust system flourish. And like I told you, if I said it once, I said it 1,000 times. How many times is it going to take for me to say this? And how long is it going to be before you get it that it's the government against the people? Do you understand? When they passed these 911 or 9/11 laws because of the so-called alleged terrorist attack in 2001, these laws don't affect these people across the pond. They affect you. They are there to erode your civil liberties. And anytime you want to trade what you call your liberties for protection, you deserve tyranny. And you getting it too. On a full platter. Hook, line, and sinker. And you don't deserve freedom. Well, Chicago is simmering right now. Activists are coming out, they're simmering. Now watch this. Here is a lady that is going to give her eyewitness account. An eyewitness account of what she said. But you know what often happens? This is one witness against all these reports with all these officers are going to write. And of course, how do you think those reports are going to come out? How do you think they're going to come out? Oh, you better believe they're going to come out in full force for the officer that murdered this man in cold blood on the street. You know, again, cameras everywhere, cell phones everywhere. Boy, guess what? The cops are finally getting their just due. The chickens have come home to roost. Modern day technology is just literally showing out. Let's go to the eyewitness now. And then after we get finished with eyewitness, I say a few more things, then we'll go to the whole entire news report. So you can hear, I am reporting, you decide.
Police.
It was super exaggerated. You didn't need that many cops to begin with, and second of all, you didn't need to. They didn't need to shoot them. They didn't. They basically had them face to face. There was no purpose why they had to shoot them.
Okay, let's go back and let's hear this representative of the Fraternal Order Police. Let's hear what he had to say again, lest we forget.
Officers are responding to somebody with a knife in a crazed condition who stabs out tires on a vehicle and tires on a squad car. You obviously aren't going to sit down and have a cup of coffee with him. He is a very serious threat to the officers, and he leaves them no choice at that point but to defend themselves.
What?
Officers are responding to somebody with a knife in a crazed condition who stabs out tires on a vehicle and tires on a squad car. You obviously aren't going to sit down and have a cup of coffee with him. He is a very serious threat to the officers, and he leaves them no choice at that point but to defend themselves.
What?
Officers are responding to somebody with a knife in a crazed condition who stabs out tires on a vehicle and tires on a squad car. You obviously aren't going to sit down and have a cup of coffee with him. He is a very serious threat to the officers, and he leaves them no choice at that point but to defend themselves.
Can you say liar, 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 liar? And I want to let all of America in on something, and just in case you don't know. Anytime you're dealing with the court system, the legal profession, no matter whatever you want to call it, there's no such thing as a lie. Everything is based on strategy. Who has the best strategy? That's what it's all about. It has nothing to do with truth or lies, because in this system of blind justice, in this system of corruption, there is no such thing as right or wrong. There's no such thing as truth or lies. It's all about man-made laws being interpreted by the people who are part of the good old boy system. Wake up. Let's go to the news source. Man, this is frustrating.
Chicago police say they had no choice but to shoot a 17-year-old boy who threatened them with a knife late last night. The teen later died at the hospital. NBC5's Susan Carlson joining us live at 41st and Pulaski, where this all happened. She joins us now with the very latest. Susan?
Well, Stefan, right now I can tell you that police have cleared this scene after gathering evidence overnight. The Independent Police Review Authority is investigating, but police say this was a clear-cut case of self-defense.
Clear-cut case of self-defense. At the time of the shooting death of 17-year-old Laquan McDonald 13 months ago, much of the initial account, upon which several news organizations based their stories at the time, was provided by the spokesman for Chicago's Fraternal Order of Police, Pat Camden. Camden, who arrived at the scene and was paraphrased and quoted by news organizations, gave an account of the shooting of Laquan McDonald that was later contradicted by the dashcam video. Here's how NBC's Chicago affiliate WMAQ, which characterized the police account of the shooting as a clear-cut case of self-defense, reported on Camden's explanations of what happened when police approached Laquan McDonald.
Fraternal Order of Police spokesman Pat Camden says as other officers approached to arrest him, he lunged at one of them with the knife. And as soon as that happened, they shot him.
Now, that account was contradicted by a witness who told ABC7 Chicago McDonald was not a threat to police.
It was super exaggerated. You didn't need that many cops to begin with, and second of all, you didn't need to. They didn't need to shoot him. They didn't. They basically had him face to face. There was no purpose why they had to shoot him.
But ABC7 Chicago also had this account again from Pat Camden.
Officers are responding to somebody with a knife in a crazed condition who stabs out tires on a vehicle and tires on a squad car. You obviously aren't going to sit down and have a cup of coffee with him. He is a very serious threat to the officers, and he leaves them no choice at that point but to defend themselves.
Now, that might have been the end of the story. Police union spokesman says it was self-defense, clear-cut. And then an unnamed whistleblower approached independent journalist Jamie Calvin and attorney Craig Futterman, who was on our show last night. And the whistleblower told them there was a video and that it was horrific, according to Calvin, speaking to ChicagoReporter.com. After a FOIA request, Calvin obtained a copy of McDonald's autopsy. And that autopsy report revealed that 16 shots were fired into Laquan McDonald, hitting him in his chest, neck, head, back, right leg, and both arms. Now, that crucially differs from the initial reports that said simply McDonald was shot in the chest. Initial reports also said that, quote, the boy allegedly lunged at police. Today, after the dashcam video clearly showed Laquan McDonald did not lunge at officers, Pat Camden, that spokesperson, distanced himself from those comments attributed to him, telling the Washington Post, I never talked to the officer, period. I have no idea where it came from. It was being told to me after it was told to somebody else who was told by another person. This was 2 hours after the incident. It's hearsay is basically what I'm putting out at that point. It's information that's been given to me by a third party that gathered that information from other parties. Whatever the implications of that claim, this isn't just about Officer Van Dyke and Laquan McDonald. There were numerous other officers present who presumably filed reports about what happened, numerous officers internally who may have seen the tape, and there are a lot of questions the mayor and the police department are going to have to answer about whether this was adequately investigated before that whistleblower spoke out and before the public started asking questions. Joining me now, Larry Rogers. He's Cook County Board of Review Commissioner and a civil rights attorney. And Commissioner Rogers, are you confident that this was all handled according to protocol and on the up and up?
Absolutely not. In fact, it's a huge question in our minds as to why they would be fighting to restrict the public from seeing this video for so long. And if you're familiar with the timeline, you'll also know that soon after October 20th, when this happened, within a couple of months, we had a mayoral election. So there's a great deal of concern as to whether there was a conspiracy, quite frankly, to hide this information from the public to avoid its potential impact on the mayoral election.
I just want to be clear. Are you suggesting that then incumbent Mayor Rahm Emanuel, running for re-election and facing it a few months later, took actions to hide this videotape in order to improve his chances of re-election?
What I'm telling you is that we have a videotape of a murder that directly contradicts the description of the officer that this young man lunged at him. This is not a case where you have to identify the shooter. All you have to do is determine whether, in fact, this young man lunged at the officer, and therefore there was a justifiable shooting. The video absolutely refutes it. Therefore, you have a basis to charge him. So why did it take 400 days to charge a Chicago Police Department officer for what we have on videotape and is clearly a unjustifiable homicide of a 17-year-old young man? And does that have something to do with the timing of the election that was impending is a very legitimate question that I think many need to answer.
Well, how would that be answered? I mean, the city's position, as I understand it, has been this, that there is a process, there are a series of processes. First, there's the IPRA, which is the Independent Police Review Authority, and all police officer-involved shootings go through them, so they had it. We didn't want to tamper with that. We're not going to get involved in that. The state's attorney then came in, began their own investigation. There was a justice investigation. And the mayor's office basically says, look, we don't want to be tampering in any of these independent investigations. This had nothing to do with us, essentially.
Well, as you noted a moment ago, Pat Camden made very specific comments about how this was an act of self-defense. So there was direct involvement immediately at the time, which he's now distancing himself from. What we need to avoid, and what has been the problem in Chicago, is this culture of protecting officers when, in fact, the evidence does not support it. So from the very get-go, there seems to be an effort to defend the officers before the facts are known. In this particular case, where you have a videotape, there is not a whole lot of investigation that needs to be done. The entire shooting is on videotape. In 15 seconds, he fired 16 shots, many of which were fired while the young man was on the ground. This man should have been charged within a matter of days, weeks, at most months. And absolutely, under no circumstances, should it have taken 400 days.
Final question.
I think the state.
Yeah, please. Let me just say, that Pat Camden is a union official, not a city official. But the final question is, are you confident that had a whistleblower not come forward to Jamie Calvin and Craig Futterman, had the FOIA not been filed to get the autopsy, that if the process had been left to its own devices, that we would be here with this charge?
I'm absolutely not confident of that, and that's one of the growing concerns and why I would suggest we need a special prosecutor in this case. The prosecutor held on to the videotaped shooting of a 17-year-old by a police officer and didn't charge him for 400 days, and in essence was forced to charge him once a judge ruled that the video needed to be released. That's entirely unacceptable. She's lost, the public has no confidence in the fact that she will charge him. And if you know the history of Chicago, there was another officer-involved shooting that resulted in the death of a young lady named Rekia Boyd. And that officer basically was let off scot-free because this prosecutor filed the wrong charge against him. So we have no confidence in this prosecutor's ability to properly prosecute this officer, and we need a special prosecutor in this case.
All right, Larry Rogers, thank you.
Now, I'm going to clearly tell you what our problem is in this country. Clearly tell you what our problem is in this country. The generation before us has sit back and done nothing. They have literally enjoyed the American dream, which has become a nightmare in the time that we're living in now. And now we're saddled with all these unjust laws. We're saddled with almost $20 trillion in debt. 65 trillion, some people say. 220-something trillion when you add in unfunded liabilities, Medicaid and Medicare. Rome, America, i.e., is burning. The house is burning down. And you know what the sad part about it is? You are doing nothing about it. And you know why? We can't do nothing about it. Because they have made sure that looking at the history of empires, that they have crossed every T and dotted every I, and this is their run of an eternity. And they've got this system on lockdown. The founding fathers, everything that they feared that would take place, that could possibly happen about this country being hijacked and taken over by a democracy. Boy, they have crammed that down your throat, ain't it? When we are a constitutional republic. Well, let me say, we used to be a constitutional republic. Now, we are democracy, and we are tasting the fruit of tyranny. Don't you just love it? Don't you just love it? The fears of the founding fathers have actually come at our doorstep. They said that they gave us a republic if we could keep it. And you know what? We have not kept it. We are hijacked. This country is literally hijacked by people who are not of the same mind as the people, nor the same people who wrote this Constitution. And of course, there are sellouts in everything that goes on. And this system is sold out. I said it once, I'm going to say it again. This is the government against the people. It is literally amazing to me and appalling to me how that 1% of this country has 99% of the people living in utter fear and terror. Utterly amazing to me. All the fears that the founding fathers gave us when they started giving us these documents right here, the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. The Constitution is there to ensure the enforcement of the Declaration of Independence. It's all gone. It's every bit of it. We are in a socialist, fascist, communist, oligarchy, monarchy, ruled empire with an emperor country. That's what we have, whether you like it or not. You can go, they can go to hell with this American crap. I'm proud to be American when at least I know them. What are you? What are you? What are you? What are you, subject? What are you subject? Yeah, that's right. Don't you ever say that word freedom unless you're willing to do something about it. That's just the truth. Well, there used to be a word that was used over and over and over again. And today, they almost made it a word to where they want to start calling it hate speech. And they want to say people have lost their mind. As a matter of fact, they want to call us terrorists if we ever use this word called revolution. Let me tell you something. The world that we live in today, the only way you're going to get anything that's right, because you can see economically, they have no stomach. They have no stomach to balance this budget. It ain't going to happen to you. You have no saviors in these presidents. You have no saviors in these elected or selected officials. None whatsoever at all. You better save yourself. The only hope we got in this country is a 100% reset. And that's it. And that's the true straight way. As more news come out, continue to keep breaking, we'll report it to you. All right? Y'all have a good National Day of Mourning.